O Isa, I will mutawaffika. Now the word mutawaffika has many meanings. Of the meanings linguistically is to cause to die. There's no question linguistically it means that. The question is, in this verse, does it mean that or not? Pretty much all of the mufassirin from the time of the Sahaba up until our times, they said in this verse, tawaffa does not mean to die. The reality of Isa ibn Maryam and about the reality of us Muslims living in a land where the theology is different than our theology. And as is the case, it is very relevant for our children, for even us to be reminded of the differences between our understanding of Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus Christ, and between the broader society's understanding, because in the end of the day, this is a core fundamental aspect of our theology. Now obviously, as usual, how much can be done in one short khatira? Nonetheless, some aspects today, I wanted to briefly go over some of the Quranic ayat about Isa ibn Maryam, and then explain in particular one very powerful verse from the perspective of history. So to summarize, Isa ibn Maryam is mentioned in the Quran exactly 25 times. Isa ibn Maryam is mentioned exactly 25 times. By the way, his mother Maryam is mentioned more than him, 34 times. So Maryam alayhi salam is mentioned more than Isa, and as you know, she has a whole surah named after her. And there are a number of passages of the Quran that deal specifically with the story of Isa ibn Maryam. So let's begin to summarize some of these passages. Most importantly, let's begin with Surah Maryam itself. The first 3.5 pages of the surah deals with the birth of Isa ibn Maryam. It deals with Maryam alayhi salam's pregnancy, and in it the bashara, the good news is given that Jibreel visits Maryam alayhi salam and informs her that she will give birth to a righteous child, a miraculous child. He tells her that this child will be speaking from the cradle, that this child will be performing miracles. And Maryam alayhi salam, then the pregnancy is outlined, she gives birth and she comes back. All of this is in Surah Maryam itself. In Surah Ali Imran, we have a more detailed list of the miracles of Isa alayhi salam. In Surah Ali Imran, we are told that Jesus or Isa ibn Maryam, he spoke from the cradle. He performed magical miracles meaning Allah's miracles, meaning he made birds out of clay and breathed life into it, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave real life to the birds. He cured the sick, he healed the leper, he resurrected the dead, and he told people what they're hiding in their houses away from everybody else. So this is a longer list of miracles in Surah Ali Imran. Surah Ali Imran also tells us about the Hawari, or the disciples, that there's a core group who believed in Isa and who was faithful to the teachings of Isa. And in Surah Ali Imran, we also have a reference to the end of Isa. Notice I didn't say the death of Isa, to the end of Isa on this earth. That verse that has been interpreted differently, that Ya Isa, inni mutawaffika ilayka wa rafi'uka. Inni mutawaffika wa rafi'uka ilayya. O Isa, I will mutawaffika. Now the word mutawaffika has many meanings. Of the meanings linguistically is to cause to die. There's no question linguistically it means that. The question is, in this verse, does it mean that or not? Pretty much all of the mufassirin from the time of the Sahaba up until our times, they said in this verse, tawaffa does not mean to die. Because in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses tawaffa to indicate death, and He uses it to indicate long sleep. Both are in the Quran. And so, according to the majority, when I say majority, I mean like 99.9% majority. Those who disagreed were a very small fringe. But the bulk of the ummah, from the beginning to the end, they said mutawaffika here means we will cause you to go into a long sleep. We will cause you to not be active and walking on this earth, but you will go into basically a long sleep. وَرَافِعُكَ إِلَيَّ, and I will raise you up to myself. And the fact that this is mentioned after mutawaffika is an affirmation this is not death. Because had it been death, then there's no need to physically lift Isa up there. So, mutawaffika wa rafi'uka ilayya, and I will raise you above, your followers will be raised up above those who rejected you. So this is in Surah Ali Imran. In Surah An-Nisa, Allah also has a page and a half about Isa ibn Maryam. And in it, He also mentions that the claim of the Yahud is that they killed Isa, and the slander that they gave to Maryam, that she gave birth to an illegitimate child. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Nisa, وَبِكُفْرِهِمْ وَقَوْلِهِمْ عَلَى مَرْيَمَ بُهْتَانًا عَظِيمًا. And they disbelieved in Allah, and they said buhtan against Maryam. So in the Midrash, in the Jewish exegetical literature, it's not in the Old Testament, but it is in the rabbinical, tafsir. They use a word that I'm not going to say here, but the English equivalent begins with B. It's a very vulgar word.